This is 1914 Twilight in the East from GMT Games, and this is probably the end of the game for me. I'm not having any fun with it, and alright, let's call it a review. It's a review purely from my point of view, obviously, and I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy this game. And I'm sure if you played one of the smaller scenarios, it would be a lot better than it is. Now, I can't complain about the components. The components are lovely. G&T, I very rarely have anything to complain about with a G&T game. The rule book it's hard going. I think it could be a little more verbose. It's over there, so I'm not going to go over there. There's a lot of sort of sections where it'll say there'll be a sentence and then it'll say refer to rule 8.1, refer to rule 5.6, and bullet points like that. And I think there could have been a bit more effort to just explain each bit in more detail, so you didn't have to keep looping around the rulebook all the time. But that's not the killer for me. The killer for me is it's fiddly. It is really, really fiddly. Having to roll on 3 tables for each combat is a problem because, all right, there aren't that many DRMs and column shifts and anything per individual table, but when you add them all up together, you're talking, at least 20, 25 DRMs, about 4 or 5 column shifts and things. The artillery is really, it's too much detail. You've got to track artillery points if you haven't got a certain amount of supply. Other things is the way you're moving on the board. I know there was an issue with this game and its map that it's very fiddly working out your movement distances and everything because of the way that there is no such thing as a one movement point hex. Everything's either 2 or 1.5, and sometimes even your 1.5s are 2, depending on whether a 1.5 movement secondary road goes through rough terrain. So there's lots of fiddly little things like that. There's the fact that you can expend movement points to achieve a task, but you don't have to complete the task. So, for example, here these German units decided in their counter move stage to actually start building some improved positions. So you're having to record that these have expended 3 movement points along the way to creating an improved position. That's possibly not a sensible thing because it takes 7 movement points in total. You're going to end up with a lot of counters. I remember when I've started this and I've really only got a very small proportion of the units moving and everything. It's in fact, not only are you tracking combat effectiveness on these charts as well. Alright, it avoids counter clutter, but it makes your unit morale very complicated, and actually it makes it so you're monitoring the morale on an individual unit level. That's not fun. at the same time, you're recording hit points as well. So there's like a double level of complexity there, and I don't think you need all this complexity. Things I do like is I like the army boundary things because they sort of realistically make you move your units within the like the army boundaries, and also where along the axis of an army boundary is usually a position of weakness, which reflects stuff that happens in real life, which you very rarely see on a board game. I didn't like all the leader counters because they had another level of finicky stuff. It's chrome. Now, some of them are optional, which is fair enough. But I found that level of chrome very difficult to keep track on. Because these things say this leader's in charge of this corps on the first time they do A or B, they get this effect. It's very difficult to remember that. So all in all, I'm a bit disappointed. I think you can gather from what I'm saying that I'm disappointed. I'm sure this is an absolutely great game if you're playing opposed and you're playing with a group of people. So you can say one person does Austro-Hungary, one person does Germany, one person does Russia North, the other does Russia South. I think I can sum it all up in one thing, that I'm not having fun. And that is the primary criteria for playing a game, I'm afraid.